For as long as I can remember, I've been a fan of the horror movie genre. A genre that created my favorite horror movie series in Wes Craven's A Nightmare on Elm Street. But when it came to survival horror games, I was less than enthralled, though I did enjoy the first 4 Resident Evil games all for different reasons. And Silent Hill 2 proved to be one of the greatest feats in creating true suspense and terror digitally. Then came Supermassive Games' Until Dawn, a choose-your-own-adventure featuring a group of friends stranded in the woods during the coldest of winters, with the natural and supernatural attempting to kill them all. With the promise of being just as memorable as its predecessor, I happily paid the low asking price to see who would live and die because of my actions. In this first offering in the Dark Pictures Anthology, like its predecessor, Man of Medan gives gamers the ability to control 5 different characters during various sequences, as the protagonist's intended diving session doesn't pan out as planned for various reasons. It doesn't take long before a majority of the game's mechanics is introduced, from character movement to object interaction to making story-defining choices. The latter gameplay design is where Man of Medan asks you to spend most of your brain power, as it ties into everything, including the in-game system, dubbed Bearings, the game's version of Until Dawn's butterfly effect. Bearings track the choices that change the overall story and determine who lives or dies. This adds a sense of replayability, as the gamer will probably question the decisions made during certain scenes. In an effort to see how well my decision making would help a group of friends survive such a horrific experience, my initial playthrough saw me go in cold. No tips, guides, or walkthrough that would help me make the best decisions and understand what to do and where to go during certain scenarios. My second playthrough utilized the game's movie night mode, where I played with a friend locally, passing the controller back and forth when it was time to play as the characters we chose at the game's start. Both playthroughs lasted 4 to 5 hours each. In addition to local co-op, friends can play together online, with a big difference as the person watching someone else play aren't able to see the choices of their friend, setting the stage for some backstabbing moments. After discovering so many missable achievements and trophies, mostly connected to collectibles, I stuck to simply finishing the story by myself and with friends, before using the chapter select option to see how things would pan out if everyone lived, died, or certain genders lasted throughout the night. The goals I set for myself took around 20 hours and 4 full playthroughs to complete. Considering how well received Until Dawn was, Supermassive Games wisely stuck with Until Dawn's presentation style, while providing a different environment, characters, and a shorter runtime. The player has the ability to move a character around, interact with certain objects and people with the touch of a button, and stare at the pause screen featuring the faces of whoever is being utilized to advance the story. Unlike Until Dawn, there are no shooting segments, though melee attacks pop up from time to time in the form of quick-time events. For some reason, QTEs in this game, especially in hasty situations like during a chase scene, vary in speed, with the player barely having time to react before inevitably failing. The choices presented in the game range from obvious and straightforward to redundant and vague. There are moments such as opting to drink a beer that appear trivial, but the reaction will make anyone question whether or not performing the action actually means something in the grander scheme. Thankfully, Man of Medan goes out of its way to inform the player when something important occurs. Depending on the decision made during a particular choice, a notification will appear, so the player can tap a button and read the result in the menu. This becomes very helpful for future playthroughs that can reach upwards of 5 hours, depending on how many people the player can keep alive for the game's majority. Unfortunately, the characters aren't as memorable compared to their Until Dawn counterparts, having rather barren personalities beyond their initial presentations, including Conrad being a loudmouth who may make things worse for his group. Even when the character traits change, Their overall actions and interactions pretty much stay the same. The co-op actions are where it's at when playing Man of Medan. Having quick discussions or arguments over terrible potential choices made can make for a memorable experience during movie night mode. Shared story mode actually adds to the story, when playing online with a friend, as certain moments are actually solely connected to shared story mode. Not only that, but shared story mode hides the decisions of the other player. There's a great chance for more games in the genre to implement these features because they add a lot of replayability. The grandiose amount of collectibles from Until Dawn return here, including pieces of information that adds to the game's lore, and certain paintings that potentially reveal the fates of certain characters. Though playing with others definitely makes Man of Medan much more fun, the plot's pacing hurts playthroughs no matter how someone plays, with a near 30-minute prologue and a lengthy first act where stilted conversations and little tension are the focus. Any sane player would want to start a lot later in the story than developers intend. The horror in general is also lacking, with jump scares usually being the basis for spooking the player. Thankfully, the incredible atmosphere and certain questionable sights when traversing areas proved to be the most frightening experiences in Medan, beyond the curator's sections. Though Man of Medan wasn't made with impressive gameplay mechanics in mind, the amount of changes between Until Dawn and Medan in terms of movement and item interactions is minimal, unfortunately. Each character only has two speeds, slow and slower, depending on whether or not the player is holding down the walk faster button. Graphically, the game is both impressive and disappointing. Lighting, especially in the few underwater scenes and when going through the abandoned ship, is immaculate. But character models and faces are not as detailed as what was seen in Until Dawn, more than likely due to this being a cross-platform game. Though the characters' facials were motion captured, facial animations can struggle at times, while causing frustrated expressions, for example, to seem wooden and laughable. And then there are the frame rate issues. As the game progresses, so does significant frame rate drops and stuttering, a problem that can greatly affect the success of certain QuickTime events. Technical issues, some bad gameplay decisions, and a short story that starts off too slow definitely prevents this game from getting a full recommendation. But at half the price of a normal release, co-op modes both locally and online, and the promise of more content in the future, with another addition to the anthology called Little Hope, this is a nice follow-up to Until Dawn that doesn't surpass its predecessor. Though Man of Medan has some issues technically, it still makes for an enjoyable experience, mostly thanks to being able to play with friends. People who enjoyed Until Dawn will more than likely find themselves quite pleased with what comes from Man of Medan, without it outdoing its predecessor in almost every way outside of the co-op mode options. For those who didn't care for Until Dawn or similar games such as Detroit Become Human or the Telltale Games' experiences, this won't change anyone's perception of what the genre can provide, especially when a QTE goes wrong and the game autosaves right before you can cut off your console.